right, E3, what's going on tonight? Man, somebody get excited. Man, somebody get excited for last week. Wake Conference was absolutely incredible. You guys know that. Most of you were here. Man, it was just a powerful week, to say the least. So before we begin tonight, I just want to pray again. Father, I thank you for your word. I pray tonight that it would be communicated clearly, Lord, that you would speak through me. Father, that any words that I have to say, Lord, that you would remove them and that you would just speak through me. And Father, I thank you for all that you do, and I thank you that your word illuminates us, Lord, and I pray tonight that it would continue to do that. Father, and I thank you and praise you for this. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hey, quick announcement before we get into the message, but next week, or not next week, but 2 weeks from now, we are having our baptisms. I know I talked to a lot of people that couldn't do it like tonight or next week, and so we are for sure having them in 2 weeks. There is a sign-up outside as soon as you get in the lobby. There's a sign-up right there by the bracelets on that table, so if you want to be baptized, write your name down, your phone number down, and that way we can get a hold of your parents if they want to come and watch. So baptisms 2 weeks from tonight. So there we go. Hey, E3, I just want to say this. So like last week we were here at Wake Conference, right? Last week we were here and we talked, if you were with us, we talked last week about having childlike faith, right? Like Jeff started off Wake Conference talking about childlike faith, how to go about having childlike faith, and he gave a great message. And then David came in and he talked about how we can grow up in our faith, how we can grow our faith, so to speak. We looked in Peter and we talked about how we can grow in faith. And then he also talked about on Wednesday night how we are in a fight for our faith, which we've talked about here before, how we're in a fight for our faith. And so this week we're kind of in between series. Like I know some people are gone on vacation and I know that it's summer, and so I didn't want to quite start our dating series quite yet, so we'll start that in a couple weeks. So we're in between right now, and so this is just a one-off message. And so tonight I want to look back kind of at last week, and as I mentioned earlier, we talked about faith. When we talked about faith and how we have faith and how we grow faith and how we fight for our faith. And yet, here's what's absolutely true. Despite those messages and those instructions, they can all come across as meaningless. Meaningless. And you're like, what? How? A.W. Tozer said this best. He said, what comes to our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. What comes to our minds when we think about God is what is most important about us. I remember one night I was out coon hunting several years ago. Right, I was out coon hunting, and I remember the day before. So the day before I went out coon hunting, me and my buddies went over to my buddy whose dad had a fur shed. So he was a taxidermist. And so we were over at the fur shed one night, and we were just talking as we normally did. And so we were talking about a recent sighting in the area. Right? And we were talking about this recent sighting, and we were talking about how people had seen a mountain lion in our area. Right? And so we're talking about a mountain lion sighting, and how people have seen this mountain lion, like, hey, this guy saw it, and this guy saw it, and this guy saw it, right? And so I'm hearing these things, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they saw a mountain lion, and that maybe they saw the same mountain lion. And all that being said, right, like here's the reality. Like I'm listening to this, and I've seen National Geographic before, right? And so like I know that man versus mountain lion probably is not going to end well. And so I start with that because I'm out the following night and I'm out coon hunting, right? And so I'm there, I'm by the creek, and here's what happens. All of a sudden, I start hearing noises. Right, like I start hearing noises, and I let the dog go several minutes ago, and I'm like, okay, so it's probably not the dog, and so I'm just looking around as best that I can. My headlamp's off. It's dark, and I keep hearing these noises. And in the back of my mind, all I can think about is what? the mountain lion, right? Like the mountain lion. And so I'm recalling the National Geographic episodes that I've seen about how, animals are kind of wild, right? And so that doesn't usually end well for humans, right? And so I'm sitting there by the creek, I'm hearing these noises, and you ever have that feeling where like adrenaline just rushes over your body, like if you've ever been pulled over or you're ever in a high stress situation, like this adrenaline is starting to rush over my body, like my palms are starting to sweat, right? And so here's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm like, this is the mountain lion. And so I'm sitting there, and I've got a 22 in my hand, and I'm like, and here I am. I'm cocking it back. I'm loading it up, and I'm like, oh, man, I got a 22. And in the other part of my mind, I'm like, what is a 22 going to do against a mountain lion? And I'm like, gee, I don't know. Maybe, I hit it in the eye, and then it takes off, and, maybe I'll just distract it for a little while before I run to the truck. And so I draw my 22. I've got it out, and I'm like, oh, man, this is getting pretty serious, right? And so I take my 22 out, and I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to end well for me. I'm like, I don't know where that dumb dog is, but the reality is that I really wish that he was right here, right now, because I feel like I'm going to get attacked. And so I hear the noise, and it's getting closer to me, right? It's getting closer to me. The sticks are starting to move. I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well for me. And so in a moment, I start to turn my headlight on, and again, my gun's drawn, and I'm like, this is not going to go well. And I turn my light on, and wouldn't you know it, it's the dog, right? Like, it's the dog, not doing what it's supposed to do, right? It's the dog, right? Now, why do I start with that story? Because in that moment, the wrong perspective could have been deadly, right? Like, the wrong perspective could have been deadly, right? And in the same way, the wrong perspective of God is incredibly costly in our lives. And tonight, we're going to look at the character of God and how we can better understand and see God for who He truly is. Like in that moment, the wrong perspective could have had disastrous results. So often we walk through this life not fully grasping God or understanding God, and the results can be catastrophic, to say the least. And so to set the scene up a little bit, we're going to look tonight in Luke 15, but I'm going to start in verses 1 and 2 to help us set the scene. So it says this in verse 1 of Luke chapter 15. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. The Pharisees at the time, as I've mentioned before, were the religious teachers. They had the A+, so to speak, in religion class. They did all the things. They had over 600 laws that they upkept. And so this is what they thought, right? Like, this is what they thought. This is what the people thought. They thought of Jesus, right? When they thought of Jesus, they didn't think of Jesus as associating with sinners. This is not what they expected when they heard about Jesus. They expected him to be royalty, right? They expected him to sit on a throne, a physical throne, right? And they're like, how in the world could this guy sit here and eat with sinners and tax collectors, right? It's like, this guy's supposed to be a king, and yet here he is, he's eating with the lowest of low. Now, I don't know where some of you grew up as far as churches go, and I don't know what everyone's experience in life has been up until this point, but I do know one thing, that you have a perception of God, that you have a perceptive reality of who God is. You have a perspective of God. Maybe for you, he's distant. Maybe for you, he's harsh. Maybe for you, he seems like a punisher. Maybe for you, it's as if he doesn't even care about what I'm going through or my life or the things that I'm experiencing. Whatever the case, no one knows the character of God better than Jesus. Whatever your experience in life is, the reality is that no one knows God's character better than Jesus. Why? Well, because they're three in one, Father, Son, Spirit. And why do I bring that up? And why do I start as I do in Luke 15:1? Because in order for us to have the right viewpoint of Jesus, we have to look at what Jesus says about who he is, right? We have to have the right viewpoint of Jesus. And tonight, we're going to look at a story that describes wholeheartedly God's character. God's character. And why is this important? Why is this important? Because if you don't grasp his character, you're either going to run from him, you might be terrified of him, or the reality, and probably the worst case, is you might not want to have anything to do with him if you don't have the right perspective of who God is. And so we're going to pick it up in Luke 15, and we're going to break down in 2 points tonight as to what keeps us from God. The things that keep us from God. And so as I mentioned, we'll be in Luke 15. We'll start in verse 11. Jesus is saying this. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told him this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, "I want my share of your estate now before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. We read that again. "I want your share of your estate now before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. Point number 1 that we see in the text of the things that keep us from God is that we think that God is keeping something from us. We think that God is keeping something from us. We see in this story, this is basically how this story went. Hey, Dad, here's the deal. You're going to die soon, right? Like, you're going to die soon, and here's the reality. You're holding something out on me, right? Like, you're holding back on me. Like, I know that you've got this in your bank account. I know that this is what I'm going to inherit, so let's just pretend that you died right now, and you give me the thing that I want, right? Like, you just give me it right now, because you're keeping something from me, right? Now, why do I bring that up? I want you to think about right now. I want you to think about right now. And I want you to think about, man, maybe your non-Christian classmates or friends. Why do I say that? Because it seems like they can dress however they want. They can sleep with whoever they want. They can talk however they want. They can drink whatever. They can send whatever. They can go to the party with seemingly no regret every single weekend. They can talk like this. They can act like that. They can talk like that to their parents. They can go out and do all the things. They seemingly get to live all this life has to offer with no shame. It seems like they can do whatever they want and seemingly have no shame in it. They can watch whatever and do whatever, and it seems like there's no shame attached to it. And it can seem like, man, God must be ripping me off. He must be keeping something from me. And like the son in the story, we can say, yeah, okay, God, I know that you're holding out on me. I know that you're holding out on me. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to love whoever I want. I'm going to use my body however I want. I'm going to do that thing that everybody else is doing. I'm going to spend it all someday on the car. I'm going to talk to my parents however I want. I'm going to send that. I'm going to stab them in the back because they did it to me. And so therefore, I'm going to go out and I'm going to ruin their entire reputation and their entire life. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get in that relationship because I want to. Because I want to. And so often it's like, okay, I'm following you, God. Now give me the desires of my heart. Right? So often we hear that God gives us the desires of our heart. And surely He does. But here's what happens so often. We're like, okay, God, give me the desires of my heart. And you know that I wanted a man in my life for about 16 years now, and the reality is I don't have one. So give me one right now, right? And so we so often sit back and we focus on the thing that we seemingly don't have, right? And in turn, what do? We take life into our own hands. Right? Like we take life into our own hands and say, okay, the only thing I can trust is my heart. Because God, it doesn't seem like I can trust you. And we can seemingly play Selena Gomez and be like, oh, well, the heart wants what it wants. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to take matters into my own hands. And I want that guy, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and pursue that. And I want that body, so I'm going to go pursue that. I want that girl, so I'm going to go pursue her. I want to watch this, so this is what I'm going to do. Right? I want to make them feel the pain that I experience, and so that's what I'm going to do, because the only thing that I can trust in is my heart. And yet Jeremiah 17:9 would say this, that the human heart is the most deceitful of all things and desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? You know what's interesting? You'll always feel good for a moment. When we take things into our own hands, it always happens. You'll always feel good for a moment. You'll live it up for a moment. Look at what the son in the story does. It says this in Luke chapter 15, verse 13. It says this, a few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Here's what we're told. The son went out and spent all his money on wild living. That means that he went out and he did all the things that he wanted. He pursued whatever he wanted. He lived it up. He spent his money. He wasted his stuff. He lived wildly. Some of the things that, man, if you are being honest with yourself, you're like, man, like I wish I could do that right now. Like if I could do that, I would definitely do that. Right? And so we're told that, man, he went out and he lived it up, apparently. And yet, what happened? He began to starve. He began to starve. Right? And this is what always happens. This is what always happens every single time. And those of us who have experienced all the things of this world know this to be true, myself very much included. And I think the reason so often that we do this is because we want power. We want to be in control. We want to have all the things. We want to live, quote unquote, our best life. We want to be in control. Can I tell you something? You have very little control. You have very little control. And you're like, well, how could you say that? Because like I got dressed this morning and I put on the dunks and I did my hair and I put my makeup on and man, I'm in control of what I eat. How many of us think that a tornado blowing through Mount Pleasant is living our best life? None of us, right? None of us would agree with that, right? How many of us would agree that, man, that fire in California earlier this year isn't living anybody's best life, right? And yet we want control. We think that we have control so often, so we make these little control boards essentially, and it's like, oh, well, I can just control this and this and this and this and this. If you think that you're in that much power, how come you don't stop tornadoes? How come you don't stop fires? Why? Because you don't have that much control. You have some control, but not that much. We continue in the text, or we read again. It says, about the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Why? Because he couldn't control the weather. He couldn't control the weather, and yet so often, here's why I bring this up. Because sometimes we're under this banner of, here's what I think so often we can get in this idea of, name it, claim it. Name it, claim it. What do I mean by that? You'll hear people talk all the time about, oh, just name it, claim it. And they'll say things like, oh, man, you can go out and do this and do this and do this. And preachers will stand up here on stage and tell you, well, you just name it and you can claim it. And they'll say things like, oh, man, you can get married by this age. And so what we do in turn is we're like, I will have a wife by the time that I'm 25. I will have that business someday. I will have a scholarship to Harvard. I will have this relationship by age 20. I will have a jet, and I will have 3 jets, and I will have a runway. day in my own backyard, and I will have, and I will have, and I will have, and I will have, and I will have success. And everybody turn to your neighbor right now and say success. And man, I'm out of breath after saying that. Like, I'm out of breath after saying that. And so often we hear people and pastors even come up here and say, oh man, I will have this, I will have that jet. And yet where in the Bible does it say that? Where in the Bible does it say that? Right? And so we get under this banner of just name it, claim it. I will have a wife by the time that I'm 25. And it's not promised in the Bible. It's not promised in the Bible at all. And why do I start with, or say all that? Because when it doesn't happen, then we say, it's your fault, God. And I don't want anything to do with you. And so I'm out on this. And yet, what we all have a grasp on is that we are not in full control of the weather and the things around us. And that's a really good thing. And you're like, oh, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Why? Because here's the reality. We change. We change. Trends change. Yet God never changes. Yet God never changes. And with that, we should be able to be grateful and have assurance because He's steady. And He's in control. And He's in control. And with that comes trustworthiness, that we should be able to have trustworthiness in God. And in the text, this son runs from his father. Right? Like he runs from his father. It says this in verse 14. We read it again. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to come or to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. I said it before, I'll say it again. Sin costs you more than you could have ever imagined. Sin costs you more than you could ever imagine, and we see this in the text. See, so often we give up the inheritance to sleep with the pigs. We give up the inheritance that God has given us, and in turn, we trade it for sleeping with pigs. We leave what God has for us. We leave what God has for us for dating dysfunction. Do your own thing. Love who you love. There's no truth. There's no abundance in God. There's no healing in God. There's no security in God. And what happens when we do that is we're left to the pigs. And we have to cling to Jesus, clinging to His Word, knowing that He is good, knowing that He's not ripping us off, that His instruction is not there to rip us off. It is there to bring us into life. It is there to heal us. It is there to restore us. It is there to guide us. He is not ripping us off. And point number 2, the things that keep us from God from this text, is that we think that God's love is conditional. We think that God's love is conditional. Like He's up there and He's angry and He's ready to punish me. Luke 15:17 says, when he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have enough food, or have food enough to spare. And here I am dying of hunger. The son is distraught, to say the least. And yet in that moment, he thinks of his dad. It's in this moment, it's like, man, wait a second, my dad cares. Right? Like my dad cares, and he comes to his senses. And we continue on in verse 18. It says this, I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. Please take me on as a hired servant. what do we see in that text? We see that the son still thinks that there is something conditional in the relationship with his father. He's saying, man, if only I plead like this and go back to him and do all these things, then maybe I'll have a chance of being accepted by my dad. And for some of us, this is exactly how we are. We might not say it out loud, and we're Christians and we're saved, but the reality is that we're living like prisoners. And yet what we need to realize is that God desires to be with us. That God desires to be with us. And yet so many of us, I know, feel like we're walking around in chains because of a 8-year porn addiction, because of gossip, because of bitterness, because of unforgiveness, because of sleeping around, because of, again, unforgiveness. Here's the reality. You come in here on a Wednesday night and you lift your hands in worship and the song hits just right, but you lift your hands and it feels like you're in handcuffs. Because of, man, the things that I've done and the things that I still continue to struggle with. And, man, I don't feel like I'll ever be free. And it's not we come in here as an act of worship, right? It's not like we come in here worshiping to God. It's like we come in here and it's like, oh, I better worship, because if I worship, well, then maybe God will see me and maybe he'll think that I'm better than I really am. Maybe I'll get away with it. Maybe he won't see how bad I've actually been. And so I guess I'll go to church. I guess I'll go to church on Wednesday night. I guess I'll go to church on Sunday morning. And what that communicates is, God, I'm not coming here free. I'm coming here in an attitude of, I'm going to serve you so that I can earn points with you. I'm going to come here and I'm going to try and earn points with you. I'm going to come here and I'm going to try and earn your love somehow, God. I'm going to come here and somehow, if I do, maybe I'll earn heaven. And maybe for some of you, you just need to sit in his presence and bask in him. You don't need to wait to do it. You can do it tonight. Because he has invited us to sit with him. Matthew 28:20 says this: teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. And Jesus says, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. In Psalm 23:2, it says, he lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. And sometimes we come to God, and I now know that in a room like this, we can think this way. Yeah, I guess I'll go back to God. I'll lift my hands and I'll pray. But if I'm honest, I don't find any freedom in it. Instead, I think that God is keeping me. I think he's keeping me chained up like a prisoner. And I want to get right with him. And so I come to church on a Wednesday night because I don't want to face the angry judge. So I guess I'll go and worship him. And maybe this perspective is formed because of your church upbringing or something that's happened to you. But I want to read to you from John 8 where it says this: a slave is not a permanent member of the family, but a son is part of the family forever. So if the Son sets you free, you are truly free indeed. Romans 8:1 says it this way: so now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. I don't know what kind of conditional love you've experienced or walked through. What do I mean by that? Like sometimes the love that we have for one another is conditional. You do this for me and I'll do this for you. Or we think that love is contractual, like a U.S. cellular bill. Like if I keep doing this, I'll keep getting this. But only if I keep doing this will I get that. God is not conditional. God is not contractual. God is not conditional. He longs to be with you. He longs to be with me. Wherever you are, in the mirror, in the classroom, in the late night, the prom night, God longs to be with you. And you don't have to come and worship him in chains. Why? Why? You don't have to come here and worship and feel like you're in chains. Why? Because he broke the chains so that you could be with him. That's why he came, so he could tear the veil, so he could break the chains that hold us in bondage, so that you can come and worship him freely. It's not you coming here on a Wednesday night and praising to God and saying, okay, I guess now I'm your son. Okay, I guess now I'm your daughter because I came here and worshiped and said that prayer and did a couple things, and man, I just feel like I'm right with God now. No, because of Jesus and what he did and the breaking of chains that he did, that's the only reason that you can be his son or you can be his daughter. It's not because you come here and man, I'm just going to bootstrap and try harder next week. That's not the point at all. It's because of what Jesus did that you can be called son and daughter. Do you actually believe that? Luke 15:20 says this. So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and he kissed him. Filled with compassion and love, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. I don't know what it is. I don't know what struggle that you feel like you might be facing. I don't know if it's an addiction, the way that you look the way that you look in a mirror, hate what you see, the relationship dynamic, the anxiety that you seemingly feel every single day, the stress that feels like it overwhelms you, the thing that you keep running back to. I don't know what it is. The night that you sent that, the night that you watched that you gave yourself away, that you drank that you said that you looked in the mirror and hated what you saw. But I want you to know something straight from the text. He sees it. And he sees you. He sees you. He looks at us. He sees us. And he looks at our past. And for me, I know my past is a mile long. And I would venture to say that I don't know what it is that you feel like is keeping you from God. I would venture to say that mine is probably worse. I'm the least of these, as Paul would say. Luke 15:21. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servants, Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. When the son comes home, there's a celebration. Upon his return, there's a celebration. And the reality is the same is true today. What is God's response when you run to him? Punishment? Scolding? Man, I can't believe that you did that. I can't believe that you looked at that. I can't believe that you sent that. I can't believe that you said that. I can't believe that you feel that way about yourself. No. When you run to God, his arms are wide open. And there is celebration for turning to Jesus. The reality is that some of you in the room tonight need to come back to him. You need to come back. You feel like, man, I don't think that I could be good enough for you, God. I don't think that my performance has lived up to your expectation, God. Some of you just need to run to him because he's offering you freedom. He's offering you freedom. He's not sitting there cracking the whip. He's wanting you to come back, arms wide open, into life, not to death. The reality is that when we think that God's love is conditional, it'll keep us away from him. And God is anything but conditional. He's the Father of unconditional love. So much so that he would say, I will pay whatever the price it is for my creation. Whatever the price. And so he sent his son to die on a cross, to be separated from his Father, so that you and I, and those of us who trust in Jesus, never have to. Lord, I pray tonight that those of us who don't know you, who don't know your character, would see who you really are. Father, I thank you for each and every one of us in the room tonight. And Lord, I thank you for offering us freedom, not bondage, that your love is far from conditional, that our performance is not enough to get into heaven, that our performance isn't enough to get quote unquote closer with you. Father, I thank you that you stand right behind us and are eager for us to turn to you. Lord, I pray tonight that addictions would be broken. Addictions would be broken because of the life that you've called us to walk in, true life. Father, I thank you for self-esteem issues that seem like, man, this is what I think of myself. But Father, I thank you for those being broken because of what you've done for us. Father, I thank you again for all that you do. And Lord, I just pray for each and every one of us here tonight that we would continue to press in to you, that we would know who you are, what your character reflects, and in turn we would walk in a way that leads to life. Father, I thank you and praise you for this, and I pray it in Jesus' name.